Hello. I started the meeting because I don't have Anthea here yet, but that's okay.
You there, Marie?
Yep, I am.
Sorry about that. It's
No, it's
playing
okay.
up for me, and I had to join as a.
Sorry, probably because I started it before you came in, and I probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, so I won't be having my camera on, which is not a bad thing though. But my mic. Have you started the whole meeting
No,
for
I
everybody?
haven't yet. No, I haven't yet.
I'll have to get you to do that because I can't do that now.
So what do I do to start that?
Is there a yellow thing to start
Oh
recording?
yes. Oh yes. Yes. Sorry, I have.
Yeah,
It's
and that'll
going.
get
Yeah.
everybody on
Yep. Yep.
to record, that is.
Yep. 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 Now we've got that because it's now got my yellow thing has now got end event instead
Awesome.
of start. Yep.
Cool. Righty, guys. Thank you very much for joining us here for session 6 of Next Level Score. Apologies. My camera is not working because I've joined just the same as you guys tonight. I was having a little bit of trouble. But hopefully everybody can see everything okay. And I'm going to hand over to Marie to get underway.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share a screen, or I'll start the slide. So I've just done a couple of little silly things. And now I can't share. Yes, I can. I'm going to share that one. Okay. So, Anthea, you can see this.
Yep, we can see that. Yep. Good.
Okay, cool. Right. Okay, so next level scoring. So what I'm going to go through today is some situations on running, how to score different running situations, things like illegal betting, tiebreaker, go into substitutions again, go into some of the special positions that we've got, such as DRs, designated runner, temporary runner, and DPs and DFOs and flex players and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's not called DFO anymore. It's anyhow. And have another look at the analysis and a bit. And I'm going to do a couple of true/false things to see what you think on a couple of do some myth busting if we can. So we'll start off with running situations. So stolen bases, and if you've got any questions at any stage, put your hand up and I should be able to see you a bit better this time. So I'm not doing any game situations tonight. I'm just going to go through some of these sort of special situations that we've got. Okay, stolen bases and caught stealings. So stolen bases, obviously a SB, caught stealing is a CS. So often people will think that if the catcher makes a bad throw, it's got to be an error. Doesn't always have to be. We don't give an error unless they make an extra base. So if you have a look at that first example there, the stolen base in the box going to 2, and then the E26 with the small e, because it's an advance error, going to a third base. Okay. When a runner steals, and the reason why we don't do it on a bad throw, because it's really hard to be able to tell what is whether or not the runner would have been out, definitely. Okay, but you can put an error down if there is a fielder's error, and it's a very blatant fielder's error. So just be careful. Just because the shortstop or the second base receiving the ball might have dropped it, don't automatically assume that it's an error. A really good rule of thumb that I do with those types of errors, which is the second example there, the CS2E6, is I'm watching what the umpire does, and often this is the situation where an umpire will start to signal out, and then they'll do the safe signal when they see a dropped ball. That's usually a really good situation rule of thumb to do the CS2E6. Okay, you've got to be pretty sure, and it's very hard to be pretty sure, that the runner definitely would have been out if that fielder receiving the ball hadn't dropped it. So rule of thumb is give the benefit of the doubt to the runner for the stolen base there. When we do that CS2E6, of course we're including the batter number with all stolen bases and caught stealings. But the 2 gets an assist, and it's a big E because it would have been an out. So when we're scoring, we put the 2 down in the fielding analysis as an assist. Just a note about stolen bases and caught stealings also. You only score stolen bases and caught stealings after a pitch. Okay, so it's after a pitch ball, like in between batters. Okay, you don't do it after a hit ball, for example. It's got to be on a pitch. I hope that's sort of clear, because sometimes I see quite a few people putting SBs all around the place. That's only when there's an actual steal attempt or they would have been out but for caught stealing. If the catcher's throw is good, but there's no fielder at the base, still credit a stolen base. Okay, it's not fair. You don't know basically whether or not who should have been there, for example. The runners on first and third situation, it's a common situation where the runner on first goes to second, and you can see it's not really a genuine steal attempt. If they're not going full out stealing, like, leaving, you can see them leaving quite quickly. I think we had a few situations like that in the video last week. So don't score, it's what we call is they're indifferent. So don't score it as a stolen base when the defence is indifferent to the advance. Over sort of internationally, they call it a defensive indifference. Okay, so and unless a play is made on the runner, score is an FC2. Sometimes though, you might see that they actually do a really, really quick steal. That they do, but the fielder's indifference. Give that runner a stolen base if it's you can tell a really genuine steal attempt, because it's not fair that the fielder team decided not to play them in that circumstance. When there is a double steal, so that's where there's two runners on base and both of them advance. Generally, we don't give put a stolen base on both players. We usually we usually score the stolen base on the player that the catcher makes a play on. And then the other one, we put a fielder's choice. So if you have a look at the two examples there, the first one, the runner stole and the catcher threw to 3 to try and get that runner. So the other one, we've put on the runner going to 2, we've put FC25, fielder's choice, catcher through to third base. Okay. The other situation is the other way round, where the runner on 2, the catcher tried to get the runner going to 2. Why they did when there's another runner going to 3, I don't know, but you never know. And that's why we've got FC24 there. The reason why we've done this, and this is fairly recent change, is because when we do cross-checking, and we were finding that when we were counting up all the stolen bases that the runners got, it wasn't matching the stolen bases that the catchers gave up. And so that's why instead of sort of putting 2 stolen bases against a catcher, we did this way. The exception is, and that's that note there, if the catcher makes no attempt on either runner, credit both runners with the SB and the catcher with 2 stolen bases against them. Tough, but that's the only way we can see around that one. Illegal running and runners interference, and there's often quite a bit of confusion about this. So illegal running, and there's the situations there that the illegal running covers. Running outside the 1 meter line and interfering with the throw. Okay, it's not avoiding tag. So if they're trying to, avoid the tag and they jump around and are called out for being off the base path, that's an AT, avoiding tag. Okay, running the bases in reverse, passing a preceding runner. So one runner's not allowed to pass the one in front of them. This is a really strange one. Failure to return after suspension of play. So if, say, for example, it was the play was stopped because of rain, and then it came back on, and the runner who was on the base when it was stopped didn't come back on, it's an illegal running. Removing the batting helmet. So that's one that you might often see. So it's illegal running. You're not allowed to remove the batting helmet, so that's why it's IR. And then off base when the pitcher has the ball, unless they're stealing. So sometimes they might be just standing off the base, or also the other situation that comes in here with illegal running is if they go on the wrong base. So at first, if they take they run onto they're out for taking the wrong base. So that's illegal running as well. So we'll go on now to runners interference, which is things like kicking a batted ball, not their own one, but a batted ball, interfering with a fielder fielding a ball, and deliberately crashing into a fielder. Okay. When a runner is out for either illegal running or runner's interference, you can award a safe hit to the batter if, in your judgment, they would have been safe had the offence not occurred. Otherwise, you score it as a fielder's choice. Often that can come in, that will mainly come in with runner's interference, where you can see the ball's hit, and as they say, for example, the runner's going from 2 to 3, they bang into the second base who's sort of trying to field the ball, and the umpire judges that they've interfered. You might think, well, actually, I think that would have been a safe hit anyhow. You can score that as a safe hit, like say they wouldn't have got the out. Score that as a safe hit, and you can see the two different situations there. On the runners going to 2, there's the RI4. You are scoring the person, the fielder, you're crediting the out to the person who was nearest the play at the time. Okay, and then you can put either a safe hit or a fielder's choice on the batter, depending on whether you think the runner, that the batter would have been out had that interference not occurred. Miss base. If a runner's called out for not touching a base, which includes touching, oh, sorry, I put you wrong with the illegal running with the touching the incorrect base. Touching the incorrect base when double bases are used. Sorry, I knew I'd read that, but score it as a miss base. A runner out for a miss base is considered only to have safely reached the previous base that they hit. And again, this is an appeal play, so give the out to the player who makes the appeal. In it being an appeal play, they no longer actually have to throw the ball to the base. They can just appeal to the umpire and say, hey, did they miss that base? Okay. However, if there is a throw-in ball there, okay, so say, for example, the pitcher threw the ball to first base and they said, is it out? Do give the pitcher an assist there. So here's some examples of some missed bases. And that's where it gets complicated. So the first one here in this situation is, the very first one, is where the batter has actually hit a 3-base hit, okay? There's a runner on 1, okay? The runner on 1 has gone all the way home, but the batter misses third base, okay? And is called out for missing third base. So that's MB, and the appeal there is the 7-6. However, you still advance them on the 3-base hit. You credit them with a 2-base hit, okay, there, the amount of bases they've reached safely, but you actually credit them on the 3. That just shows it would have been a 3-base hit, okay? And in the next one, and this is an interesting one, this is a home run where they missed first base. Unfortunately, they lose the home run, but they are still credited with the runs batted in there, as you can see there. However, if they miss first base and it is in a home run, and it's a in the park home run, and they and it's the third out, none of those runs score. Okay, so that's how you would score it. And then the fourth situation is where it's an interesting one, the fourth situation. Again, it's 2 outs, right? This is in the park home run. The batter has hit a home run. There's a runner on first and second. The runner on second scores, but the runner on first misses. The runner on first misses third base, and there's an appeal. Okay, it's the third out. The first runner is still deemed to have scored, okay? Because they crossed the base, or they've deemed to have crossed the plate before this this play, okay? The batter, though, doesn't get the credit for the whole way round because it's the third out. Okay. If it had been only one out, they would have. But because it becomes the third out, but they're shown, they get the credit of the home run there. All of this goes out of the window though if it's an automatic home run. So an automatic home run and they missed first base. Sorry, in that situation there, sorry, that last situation, if the player had missed third base and the batter had hit an automatic home run, that automatic home run would have stood. Okay. I know it's really complicated. And we had a really interesting situation, I think, last year. I think it was at the under 17 boys tournament or one of the tournaments with some missed bases and appeal plays, and it was very, very complicated. So again, it's an appeal play. We're going to talk a wee bit about appeal plays later on. Hit by batted ball. So when a runner is called out for being hit by a batted ball, you show us as an H, okay, and you give the out to the nearest fielder, just like the illegal running situations. So for example, if the batter would have otherwise deserved a hit, give them a hit, otherwise the fielder's choice. And show the H with the nearest fielder. However, when a batter base runner can actually be out for running into their own batted ball, okay, and show this as H2. Okay, again, that's an automatic. That's a automatic put out to the catcher. Actually, no, it's not an automatic put out to the catcher. If they ran into their own batted ball down first baseline before it passed a fielder had a chance to field it, it could be a H3 potentially. Do see the odd one. Obstruction.
So Marie, just a question here from Kelly. Kelly's just saying, why did they run the automatics out then if it doesn't matter?
How do you mean the automatics?
So if it still counts, if there's a missed base and the out's taken in that situation, the automatic, why do they run them out?
Because the automatics
generally,
still have to, if the runners still have to touch every base. And I have seen an automatic where a fielder was sort of, and it was a tight game, was sort of jumping around and missed third base. Have seen that play. Stupid play. I've also seen it where they've missed home plate, and I think that was the one that came up at the 17s last year, where the player who was coming in, the runner was coming in, actually jumped over the base and didn't touch the base. If that happens, that's an appeal play, and the fielding team can actually appeal that. Yep. Absolutely, Kelly. If they hit an automatic magic and they miss the base, yep, they're out. Absolutely out, unfortunately. And again, that's you think about if they're celebrating by the time they get home. Why are we crediting the batter with a home run if they don't get a home on it? That's a situation where another player has missed the base, right? Not the batter. Okay, so if it was the batter, no, we wouldn't credit them with a home run, but it's where another one, it's not fair on that batter to lose that home run on that one.
And in that play, the appeal happens generally once they've all crossed home plate.
Yeah.
They appeal after that anyway.
So if the umpire sees it, the umpire can't say anything until it's appealed.
Yeah. So yeah, the play finishes out like that, and generally the appeal comes after.
Yeah.
You see those questions there, Marie?
What was that last one?
Sorry,
I'll put the chat on. So the fielding team would have to call it. So what you're saying, Carmen, is we just assume that they would have got a home run. Yes, if it's if it's a in the park one, and that's one, I mean, if you're playing on an open diamond, you can really tell that they are home runs, to be honest. And they've gone around the whole bases, all the bases. It's where they end up. I hope that helps. Right, obstruction. It's where any member of the fielding team, and it could be a coach as well, impedes a batter from hitting a pitch or impedes a runner from attempting to advance. Okay, so the main time we see this is with a catcher's obstruction, and that's usually when the catcher's glove hits the bat. That's called impeding the batter. So you score an error on the catcher. So you can see the catcher's obstruction. In that situation, we put the C in front of it to show it's a catcher's obstruction, COE2. Okay, and if there was a runner on the base, you would score them as the 2 with the small e, so they advanced on that. Okay, they wouldn't have been out, but they would have been. Strangely enough, and I have seen this happen where the third base has been fielding in so closely to the batter and has interfered with the a batter trying to bunt a ball, and has been the player's been put on safe on base with obstruction there, and in that circumstances we would just put an OE5, so it could be a catcher as well. And if a fielder interferes with a base runner, score an E on the fielder. So here we've got OE6. So that's obstruction error 6. So that's, for example, a shortstop there, which is quite different from a interference. Well, it's obstruction, not interference. It used to be we used to have a fielder's interference, and it got changed to obstruction. I'm showing my age here. Leaving base early, and this is a new symbol that we brought in about 3 or 4 years ago, I think it is. So when the base runner attempting to steal is called out before the pitch by the umpire for leaving before the pitch is released, we score LB for leaving base and award the put out to the nearest fielder. So LB3. This was something we actually picked up from World Baseball. Because we had been at a bit of a predicament, because we used to put it as a CS, it used to be a CS3, and it used to get confused with an actual caught stealing attempt from the actual caught stealings from the catchers, and it didn't really reflect that caught stealing statistic didn't really reflect the fact that there were actually some plays that were scored as caught stealings as CSs because of the leaving base early. So we picked up on this and put in this LB3 as a leaving base for leaving base early, and it's LB3. Illegal pitches. So an illegal pitch, when the umpire calls an illegal pitch, right, if there are runners on base, you advance the runners on a IP. So you can see there up the top in that box. However, regardless of whether or not there are runners on base, we do record the illegal pitch as a ball for the batter, and we indicate it with a red exclamation mark, as you can see there in the batting. So we include all illegal pitches in the total pitching analysis. So that's why now in the analysis, in the innings analysis, there's an IP box. We didn't used to do this. And what was happening was that the amount of legal pitches that were being called against a pitcher were not being recorded, and so the IP column, the IP statistic in their pitching statistics weren't fully reflective of the amount of illegal pitches they gave up. So that's why we've started to do this. If the illegal pitch is on the fourth ball, so it becomes a ball, and it means that they are now able to go to able to get the base on balls. We score both the walk and the illegal pitch. You can see there we've got BBIP, and this is to show that the walk was only given because of the illegal pitch. And any player who advances on this play we advance on the IP, whether or not they were forced to advance or not. Any questions on that? Okay. Illegal betting, which is IG2, and the catcher always gets credited with the out for illegal betting. And this covers all sorts of things like betting out of the box, changing batter's box illegally. So in Rule 5 or something like that, I think it's, or maybe 4, it has some situations when a batter can't change batter's box, using an illegal bet, hitting the ball twice, or batter's interference. So probably the two most common things you'd see here with this one is either betting out of the box or batter's interference. For example, they might have interfered on the catcher throwing the ball to second base. Okay. Tiebreaker. So if the score is level after the 7th innings, and I'm going to stress this, the batter that last completed his turn at bat, or her turn at bat, they will start the next innings, the 8th innings, on second base. And the player who would normally come up to bat is the batter. Okay, so the symbol, how you score the runner getting on to 2 there, is shown there at right. So don't confuse, because often you'll hear, oh, the last batter, the last out is the one that goes onto the base. No, it's not the last out. Often it will be the last out if that's the last person who was into the box. Okay? It's the last person who was into the box and completed their turn at bat that takes second base. Okay? An example of that would be, for example, if there's a runner on 1 and the ball was hit to shortstop, sorry, a runner on 1 and 2, 2 down, ball was hit to third base, who put their foot on the base, okay? You've still got the runners, the batter going to 1 still has to be scored going to 1, the runner going to 2 still has to be scored. So it can't be that runner, that third out, that was the out on the third base. It's got to be that last batter in the box, which was the one that was that completed their turn at bat, which was the runner going to first. Okay. Sometimes you might have seen what we call fast pitch, and when we do have fast pitch and start with runners on base, so fast pitch is sometimes a version of the game where we start with runners on base, we can score them in a similar way with just what we're doing is we're just filling in the boxes of the bases where they, you know, the last one is where they start from. So we don't, there isn't anywhere there that we score away for them to advance those bases. So that's just down the bottom there that you can see that. Substitutes. So I'm going to go over substitutes again. I know I touched on it last week, but I want to just touch on it again. So first of all, you write the name of a substitute immediately below the player substituted for. The position is either going to be 1 to 9, fielding position, a DP if they are somebody who is coming in and batting in the same position as the flex player, a pinch hitter, a pinch runner, an Oppo, offensive player only, not the friendly dolphin that you used to get up in the Hawke's Bay, or a DR, which is a substitute for the designated runner. Going to go into this Oppo situation a bit further along, okay? We're going to go into this. You may not be able to confirm at the time the position of the pinch hitter or pinch runner until you see whether the replacement player stays in the field when the team takes in the field, okay? So you might just leave a bit of a gap. Right, we're going to show some situations here. As I said last week, you use the S column to show when the substitute enters the game. So here we've got in the bottom half of the innings in the top, and then you put the number there. And we've got an example here. So you write the shirt number, if you've got them, name and position on the name on the line below they replace, okay? And you can see here we've got the 3. And then you mark a vertical line to the left of the batting box in the next column to show that it's a different batter. So you can see here very, very clearly, if you're looking across here, the F7 was with Thomas Enoka, had the first the F7, and then Brad Rona had the safe hit to left field there. Really easy to be seen. When a player re-enters the game, use the R column similarly to the S column use. Okay. If that substitute batter, i.e. Brad Rona, is later replaced, and it could be a re-entry like this situation was, or it could even be another substitution. You mark another line, vertical line, after the batting box to show that any further batting belongs to the next substitute. Okay. Yeah. Right. Base running. When a player enters the game as a runner, mark a short line on showing which base they ran from. So in the first example there, Joel Evans came on as a pinch runner at the top of the 3rd for Thomas Enoka at first base. You can see the line there. Okay. If then that runner goes onto the field and comes on as a substitute fielder, mark a vertical line next to the base. That will say that any next lot of batting isn't credited to the original batter. So we only put that in as if that runner stays in the field. It's still got pinch runner. That Joel Evans could have gone into any position, or another player could have come in there, but it just shows. Right. For every defensive change, including a new player brought into the game, you put in the exact point of entry into the innings where it's shown on the opposite half of the sheet where you're scoring the game, okay? You mark a horizontal line above the box of the next batter due up. And so that means if fielding changes, they can happen there could be several fielding changes during an innings, and you want to be able to know which ones they are, okay? So where a new pitching it's a new pitcher that comes over, you put the shirt number in brackets and then use these indicator boats. If there is a pitching change, right, and another fielding change, and I think we saw an example of that possibly last week, you put another line in underneath there. So say, for example, there was another position there, we would put another line underneath there. And up in here, while we've got the new score sheet that has the boxes up here for the innings, if you're still using the score sheets that has the top of the innings here, you can still put those positions, I would still write those positions up there as to what position actually changed. So one of the position up here would be 1. This would be a different position, maybe 7, 3, could be 4 and 6, for example. It could be in the second base and the shortstop swapping over. But it just shows what it is, which one it is. When any player changes fielding position, and it's including a re-entry into a different position, show the innings number and the new position in the innings position column. So here we can see that Thomas Enoka in the 6th innings, he went to first base, and then also in the 6th innings, he went on to pitch. And so that's an example that we're just talking about where there's 2 changes in an innings, okay? You don't need to use these columns when a substitute first enters the game, okay? Only if they then change position later on. When a designated runner is used, so a designated runner is one that the teams, and that's in a competition where there is a designated runner allowed to in those competitions. So there are some competitions which you can't use a designated runner. I know underage national tournaments, you can't use a designated runner. If it's one of the new score sheets, there's already a little column in there, a box in there for the designated runner. Okay, so I would put it in green. Okay, if you're using the previous score sheet, which is what probably 90% of you are using, write the name on the bottom line of the 9th batter. And if you go into another DR, you'll need to go above, okay? But you write it in green. And when the DR comes into the game, mark the base running change, the change that we saw earlier, that this one here, that would be green. Okay, that shows the difference between a designated runner and a pinch runner there, or later on it could be a temporary runner as well, but we'll come into temporary runners in a minute. We'll come into temporary runners right now. So in some situations, it is legal for a catcher or pitcher of the record, so whoever's the pitcher or catcher, from the previous half inning who is on base with 2 outs to be able to be replaced by a temporary runner, okay? So for example, there's 2 down, the catcher is on second base, and this is to speed up the game. Or the pitcher's on second base, and there's 2 down, or it could be first base, or it could be third base. The temporary runner could be used to come in for either the catcher or the pitcher, okay? Okay, it's optional, and it can be used at any time after the second out occurs, but only for those 2 players. So like the tiebreak runner, it is the player who is scheduled to, or similar, sorry, not like, similar, scheduled to bat last in the inning and is not on base at the time the option is taken. So sometimes the player might be on base. The previous player might already be on base. So you've got to keep going back and looking back as to who the next player before that would be. And that can be really complicated if you're looking at both pitchers and catchers. Because you might miss the fact that the one before that was actually the pitcher, and so they can't be the temporary runner. So it's got to be the next one, the one previous one to that. Okay. That is something for team scorers really to get their grips around if this is being used, their heads around. Get a grip of. So the way to score it is you enter the shirt number of the runner who's come on to run on the 4th line of the batting list for the catcher or pitcher, and you use a bracket to separate each innings because it may not be the same runner each time. You don't need to score the innings. And then you indicate on the bases, just with the normal colour pen that you would normally use, the line there. Okay, so in this situation here, you can see underneath Harrison Wildball there, he's had a temporary runner come on twice for him. The first time was shirt number 19, the second time was shirt number 14. So when we're crediting putouts and or crediting stolen bases and such like that and runs scored, it's the person that actually scored the run that or stole the base or whatever that we credit that against. And by putting the line there, that's where when the lines are there, we have to really have a good look back. Is it green or is it your normal scoring colour? If it's green, it's a DR. If it's your normal scoring colour, just shoot across when we're having a look to see is there a pinch runner or somebody come in there. If not, and you can see if this was the situation there, we could show that we could see straight away that that's it's a temporary runner and who it is. Any questions about temporary runners? No, okay. Right. Designated players and flexes. Okay. So designated player is a player who's chosen or designated to bat for another player at the start of the game. Okay. So you've got to have you've got to name a designated player in your lineup at the start of the game. Okay. The player that the designated player is batting for is called the flex or flexible player. And one thing I actually haven't noticed here, and I've noted here, and I should have, when you're writing up the lineups for that, okay, you put the designated player into the position in the lineup where they would bat. They're doing the batting because it's a batting lineup. And the person that they're doing the batting for, the flex often it's a pitcher, but not always, you put on the 10th line. Okay? And you'd put the position beside, or to show that it is. Okay? Because that is the batting lineup. But don't forget to put in that fielder. Okay? When you're scoring it in the score sheet, you write the name on the top line of the batting row, and you're writing the name of the player playing defense or flex on the third line of the batting row, and that allows for a substitute for each player. So you can see there in the example there, both of those, both the DP and the flex have had substitutes. So Wayne Laulu was the DP that started the game there in that example, and Nick Hayes was the flex as the pitcher. Okay, in the 5th innings, right, Brad Rona came in as the DP. So you can see there why we've left a line. It gives us the opportunity to put Brad Rona in there. And then in the bottom of the 7th, Josh Pettit came in to pitch came in instead of Nick Hayes, okay, as a substitute for Nick Hayes. And so we've got space there on that line. That's a fairly standard one to show the change. We're going to start to get a wee bit tricky now. DP can come into the field, okay? So in the top example there, that's a situation that we can commonly get with the coaches using a DP. Often they may have a pitcher who is a very good batter and another pitcher who's not such a good batter. So what they can do is put the pitcher who is the really good pitcher in to start the batter rather to start in as the DP, right? Even though they might be wanting to start them off as the pitcher, they put them as the DP to start off with. And then at the start of the game, they go up to the umpire and say, we're bringing the DP into pitch. Okay? Right? So temporarily, they've gone down to 9 players. So you show this change in the innings change boxes, and you see there we've put a dash in Daniel Chapman's position flex box because he's no longer there as far as that, but he can come back into the game at any time, and that's the whole advantage of this. With that, a lot of coaches will use that is the pitcher that they may bring on into defence at some stage if that batter that bats very well, and then starts as the pitcher, so that what they can then do is say, okay, we're bringing back the flex, and the DP is going back to DP. So the starting DP is going back to DP. It's a bit of a tricky that's the most commonly used one, and it's a really good advantage to use. And you see a lot of your your top teams who have got a good batting pitcher will do that with a good batting pitcher. An example is with the Papanui team with Jackson Watt, who's a very, very good batting pitcher. They will often put him in as the DP to start off with for their other pitcher. And then what they will then do is they will say, okay, we're bringing in our designated player to pitch, so he can pitch. And then when they need to bring in the other one who isn't a very good batter, they can bring that other one onto pitch, but keep Jackson batting, and to take advantage of his batting. The DP can go into the field, and one of the other players can bat only or play a fence only, and this player then becomes an oppo. So if you've got the situation there, and that's just like a fielding change, there's no substitution with that, that is a fielding change, okay? So in this situation here, Brad Rona was the DP, okay? And in the 4th innings, he went to play first base, and Nathan Nuku, who was the first base, has gone in, and he now becomes, he's no longer a DP, he becomes an oppo, an offensive player only. Okay? Yeah. Why they don't become a designated player, and this has been changed, I'm not sure, but this is what the rule book says, that in this situation, they become an OPO, an offensive player only. So here's a few tips just to sort of get your head around. The DP and the flex can be defense at the same time. Okay, so we just saw that example. So that's the starting DP, but both can't bat at the same time. Okay. So if you have a look at the third bullet point there, the only position in the batting order that the flex can come on in and bat is the position that that DP started in. So that's why they both can't bat at the same time. Okay, and that flex can't go in and say, so say for example, the DP started in position number 2 in the batting order. Okay, the DP was there, and then the flex can't then, for example, go in and bat in position for whoever's in batting 5 or batting 6 or position there. Okay, the only position they can is in batter 2. So in that previous situation that we had, we'll just go on to it, this Nathan Nuku one here. For example, Nick Hayes could come in to bat for Brad Rona, okay, at any time. But he can't go in and bat for Nathan Nuku when Nathan's become the OPO, because it's a different place in the order. Okay, so he could go in because it's the same position in the batting order as the original DP for Brad Rona, but he can't for Nathan Nuku. That sort of explains it a bit. The DP can play defence for any player in the starting 9 or their substitutes. And if that occurs, that player becomes the offensive player only. So, yeah, they can. That's an example that we just sort of used. We saw there with Brad Rona. And Rule 3.2.4 and Rule 3.2.5 actually state that the DP cannot play defence only. Okay, so the DP is originally an offensive player, and the flex cannot play offensive only. I haven't read that rule to say exactly why, but that's what it says apparently. I have to go and have a read of that rule. How are we going? Just going to shoot through some of the analysis, just going over the analysis again. Just a reminder, you've got your batting analysis through to here, you've got running in here, and your fielding in here. This is an over-exaggerated situation where you've got a player playing 2 positions, you put the, if there's nobody underneath it, you put the second position they play underneath, and then you just do this pull down line that shows that it's a the 2 positions. Sometimes you might get the substitution, the situation here where the one on the top line plays 2 positions, but there's a pinch runner or somebody else come in. In that circumstance, you can go up, but generally you go down if you can. Okay. And where they play only as a pinch runner, for example, you can put lines across all that way. In here, we don't put lines across all the way here for the flex players, because theoretically they could come into bat, so we just put a couple of dashes. If you notice here, the only columns that we're putting dashes into are the plate appearances, the at-bats, and the reach at-bats, okay, in the batting. And sorry, yeah, you're not putting the dashes into any other columns there. Okay, so those are the only columns in the batting analysis and the fielding that you're putting the dashes into if you're doing your analysis. Your fielding analysis, these figures are obtained from the opposition side of the score sheet from the innings analysis. So this is an example of the innings analysis. So we're going to count up here. So if we're counting up for the second base, we're going to count 1 assist, 2 assists, 3 assists. We can see there that number 4 has come up 3 times. These here where there's 2 numbers there like that, that's not a 23 or a 16, it's a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 6 and a 7 and a 6. So for example, shortstop had 2 assists. It's where sometimes you might get a 2 assists on the same out. So here, again, the put-outs, we're counting up the number of times. So if we're counting up the number of times when the catcher takes the put-outs, so the number of put-outs, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the same with the errors. These big, thick lines here can show where there have been changes. So say, for example, the first base was changed here at this position, this stage here, after the 1, 2, third innings, we would credit the first base with 1, 2 put-outs, and then the second one with 1, 2, 3 put-outs. Just keeping a track, just going up and having a look at which field that these change lines go for. Quite often you might see, it's optional, but you might see scum scorers just putting a wee mark of the position or positions that change there. So if this, for example, was where the first base changed, they might just put a little wee 3 there. The pitching and catching summary. On each half of this sheet, list all the names of all the players who pitched to court, and these will come from the opposition's side of the score sheet. H in all our analysis as well means all the safe hits, including bunts, doubles and triples and home runs. So here, for example, there were 5 hits, of which 1 was a 2 base and 1 was a 3 base. Okay. Batters faced, winning, losing, innings, K's for strikeouts, BB for walks, R for runs, R for earned runs, and I'm not touching on this at the moment. If you want to know about earned runs, contact me and I'll work through earned runs with you. Hits, 2 base hits, 3 base hits, home runs, wild pitches, hit pitches, and illegal pitches. Right. What we also do is we prove the box score. So there's a box down the bottom where we have 2 side-by-sides. So where we've got that, this means that we're checking to make sure we've got everything. Runs is the runs scored by that team. So this is on both sides of the score sheet. The runs scored by that team on the same side of the score sheet that you're doing it on. Likewise for the total runners left on base. This is where it changes. The total put-outs made by the opposing team, and you get that figure by adding up the put-outs in the fielding analysis. Not by counting the number of runs on the opposition side or by having a look under the innings analysis. You total the put-outs in the fielding analysis. So that's why the fielding analysis has to be done before proving the box score. Okay. I know in some assessments I have seen the fielding analysis not completed, but the box score has been completed. And even though it might be the wrong figure, I mark it wrong simply because it's been done the incorrect way. TB is tiebreaker. So if there is a tiebreaker, you take 1, you subtract 1 for each innings that started with a runner on base, a tiebreaker. So if you have 2 tiebreaker innings, you're going to put a 2 there. At bat is the total of the at bat column. BB is the total of the base on balls. SH, HP and CO columns. So we talked about cross-checking and the proving of the box score, and this is where you do the cross-checking. At the bottom of the batting, running and fielding analysis, pitch and catching analysis, you total the columns of the bottom line in red, as well as the last right-handmost column of the end of innings analysis. Okay, so you total them all in red. So you can see there, and we saw on that previous one with the batting, the red there. What happens there is that means that we can cross-check to make sure there are no mistakes. So we've got here the batting hits, right? And this is the pitching. The pitchers have given up a total of 5 hits. On the opposite side of the hits of the sheet, there will be the hits should equal the same amount. And it's the same with all of these. And that is a cross-check to make sure that we have it all correct. Same with the stolen bases, caught stealings, everything is able to be cross-checked at some stage. And if you've got all your totals and done all your cross-checks, and they all make, you should have no mistakes or very few mistakes in your analysis. Now, I'm just going to touch very quickly on appeal plays, okay? Because as a scorer, you need to know what an appeal plays. So these are specific outs that only can be given after an appeal by an opposition team. The most common ones are missed base, batting out of order, an illegal substitute or illegal re-entry, and the incorrect temporary runner. Okay. If you are the official scorer for the game, you don't say a word unless you are asked by the umpire. Even if somebody comes up and says, is that batting out of order? No, we can't say anything if we're an official scorer. However, as a team scorer, it's your job to let your coach or manager know. You don't call time yourself, but you let your coach and manager know about it and let them make up their mind as to whether they are going to do the appeal. Sometimes coaches won't do the appeal, but sometimes they will. Okay? Right. Now, get your hands up, not your hands up, your thumbs up, your reactions ready, because I'm going to do some true or false situations. Okay, first situation. Pitchers can't make errors. Who thinks that's true? Or put your hand up if you think it's true. No hands up. Excellent, you've got it right. Okay. Next one, all outs that advance runners are sacrifices. Who thinks that's true? Oh, no, it's not, unfortunately. Only if it's less than 2 down, and if it's a bunted ball or a that advances a runner, or a ball that's caught usually in the outfield and the runner scores after that catch. So no, they're not always sacrifices. Okay, you can put your hand down now, Karma. If you get your glove to the ball, it's got to be an error. Who agrees with that? Hopefully nobody, because it could be a really, really good, they could have made a really good attempt. Okay. A pitch that bounces before the plate and advances a runner is a wild pitch. Who agrees with that? Yes, we've got some hands up, which is brilliant. Yes, that's correct. Any pitch that bounces before the plate and a runner advances on it, it's got to be a wild pitch because it's taken out all sort of predictability for the catcher catching that ball. Well done. Put your hands down. If a throw-in ball hits a runner, it's an error to the thrower. Who agrees with that? It's true. If a thrown ball hits a runner, it is actually an error to the thrower. That allows them to go an extra base or whatever. Yep, it's an error to the thrower. Okay. Oh, yep. No, that's okay. Thanks, Karma. All hits that go over the fence on the full are home runs. Who agrees with that? If there's a fence in play? Absolutely. Yes, if they... No, yes, if they're a safe hit, yep. Absolutely. Okay. Right. I think that's come to my end. We're a bit over time. If you need more information, there is under softball or getting involved, there's a whole load of stuff. I'm always available for you to contact me, ask me anything. Yeah, if you want anything, just contact me. Next week, we've got and you can share this with your coaches if you want. We're doing a bit of an extra session, but it's scoring for coaches. Okay, so it's explaining scoring for coaches. Anthea didn't like the title I called it, so I won't say what it is. But yeah, it's to give coaches an idea of scoring, what we do, all that sort of thing. So if you're scoring for a team and you'd like your coach to come along to that, tell them about it. It's the same bat time, same bat channel that we're on. So let them know and they can come along. Be good to see some along. So otherwise, thank you very much for being here, for those of you who have been here for 6 weeks or for coming in and out. It's been lovely working with you all. And as I said, I'm happy here to be here and to talk to you about other things as well. So yeah, thanks, Terry.
Just before we do go though, Marie, just want to thank you very much for giving up the last 6 weeks to enlighten us in all the technical aspects of scoring. It's been great. It's certainly taught me a lot, and I hope that everybody has enjoyed it. But we do realise the amount of time that you have put into it to do this, so thank you very much.
Not a problem. As long I'm here to help you out, okay? So that's my whole philosophy is to try and help scorers out. And the thing is just remember this: no question is too dumb. Okay, if you think, oh, I've got a dumb question, I don't want to ask it, ask away. Okay, if you might see me around the Diamonds in Canterbury, if you do, come up, say hi, ask me anything. Yeah, I'm happy to help out. Okay.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Marie, I'll just have to get you to turn off the video because I can't do it my end.
I'm sorry, I won't do that again.
No, that's all good. Okay, thanks, team.
Okay, cheers. See you later.